Okay, guys, so today we'll discuss about the corporate reconstruction and hopefully we can start off with the risk management as well. So, do you have any doubts with respect to mergers and acquisitions and any theories which you have learned in the last class? Do you have any doubts? Okay, fine. So today we'll discuss about the corporate reconstruction part and reorganization and business reorganization. Okay. So can you see the word file? Okay. So what are the different ways in which the company can restructure their overall company? Okay. Let's say when the company is facing the financial crisis, what's the option left to them? What's the option left to them? The company is facing any sort of financial crisis. What's the option left to them? The easiest option is they can liquidate themselves, right? What do you mean by liquidation? We are selling off our assets to settle liabilities, isn't it? Is that the process we'll do in liquidation? Can you reply in the chat? Yeah. But do you think that this liquidation will benefit the shareholders? This liquidation will benefit the shareholders. This liquidation, will it benefit the shareholders of the company? No. Why? Why it won't benefit the shareholders, Riha? Why this liquidation does not benefit the shareholders? Because we know that there is an order in which we settle the liabilities, right? So first of all, we'll settle the debt holders, and if anything left, then only we'll give it to shareholders, right? So basically, in the liquidating situation, after selling off our assets and by settling the liabilities, literally there will not be anything left to shareholders, because shareholders will be given the preference only at the end, right? Only after considering the main debt holders and even after preference shareholders, if anything left at the end, that will be given to shareholders. But normally, nothing will be left after. So instead of just going, whenever the company is facing a financial crisis, instead of just going for a liquidation, there are different ways in which they can evolve from that particular stage. So that's what actually we are discussing in the corporate restructuring. So what are the different What are the different? What are the different financial restructuring possibilities opens to companies? So what are the different opportunities? The first one will become, they can become demergers. So if they felt like, okay, this particular like Hero Honda, if it was not, they felt like it's not going well, it's not working well. So what they have done there, they went for a demerger. So now Hero and Honda is separate. They are not making any bikes in the name of Hero Honda. Okay, so they will lead to demerger because they felt like as together, if they are working together, they literally it won't benefit for them. So it's better to stay separately so that we can completely focus on our works and will become more efficient on our works. Are you getting it? So demerger means the splitting the company into two or more business. So in that scenario, each shareholders will be given shares in the new company. So the shareholders will be given shares in new company so that the control will be maintained. So that's what we do in a demerger situation. Is it clear, everyone? Then another situation is sell-off. So if you felt like this particular division is not performing well, so that is literally affecting the whole performance of our group, then we will sell off that particular division. So in the sell-off, we will sell a part of the company to an external party or third party. As a result, the control of that division is lost. So here, that's an advantage with respect to sell-off in demerger. In demerger, still the control will get maintained, but here with respect to sell-off, the control will get lost. Clear? So that's another option available for the company instead of liquidating the whole company. That's another option available to them. Then, is there any other option left to us instead of going for liquidation? There's something known as unbundling. So what do you mean by unbundling? What do you mean by unbundling? Can you reply in the chat? What do you mean by unbundling? So instead of it's almost like sell-off. It's almost like sell-off, where a particular component of the company with the intention of disposing of a part or all of the parts separately at a higher price than the whole company. Okay, so this is also known as asset stripping. So we are just, instead of selling the whole company, we are just selling the main item. Okay, so that literally we can get some huge amount of money from that scenario and we'll recover from that existing situation. So these are the different approaches we can use to get rid of that financial crisis. So demerger, sell-off, and unbundling are different opportunities available for a company to restructure themselves from a particular situation. So all these policies that we have learned now, these are disinvestment policy, or we can say that these are divestment, demerger, sell-off, and unbundling. Is it clear, everyone? So there is another thing known as management buyout. So what do you mean by management buyout? Here, we will sell the shares of the company to our managers itself, so that they will get more interested in the growth of the company, because they will ultimately become the owners. But here the risk is management normally will be buying these shares at a leverage basis. What do you mean by leverage? Because they won't be having enough cash in their hand, so literally they have to take loan from outside. But even if then they are taking loan, or they are taking the help of a venture capitalist, they will make sure that the control will remain with themselves. Is it clear, everyone? So management buyout is a process in which the managers of the company itself will purchase the shares of the company, because they will have a better idea about the company. They will work for the betterment of the company, and as a result, they can literally save the company rather than going for liquidation. But since it will incur a huge cost, especially from the perspective of a bank manager, they will incur a huge cost there to purchase the shares of the company. So literally they won't be having this much amount of cash in their hand, because they are just an employee, right? So obviously they will help out, and they will try to seek the help from any of the financial providers such as venture capitalists. But they will always make sure that even though they are taking the fund from them, we have to give certain percentage of share to the external parties as well. But they will make sure that the control will not get transferred to the other part. The control will still remain with the managers. So that is known as MPO, or management buyout. Is it clear, everyone? Can you reply in the chat? So management buyout means the purchase of all or part of a business by its own executive managers, the help of a external team, for example, using venture capitalist, especially on a leverage basis, that is through debt. That is through debt. So this takeover will be through debt, but the managers will make sure that the control of the business will remain with the managers. Is it clear, everyone? So there are two types of management buyout system. There is management buy-in and management buyout. So management buy-in means instead of our own executive managers, there is an external team of managers will come from outside, and they will quote a price to take over the company. Is it clear, everyone? Okay. So what are the advantages of managers here as a result of this management buyout? So rather than being an employee, now I can say that I am an owner of the company, right? isn't it? And even it will be from the company's perspective, or from the real owners or the actual owners of the company, they may feel like anyway I have to liquidate it, so it's better to sell it off to the manager so that I can save the redundancy cost. And obviously from the perspective of the seller, it's better to dispose of the company. Instead of disposing that particular part, it's better to give it the managers itself, so that they are the ones who have better knowledge about the company. And if they become the owners, literally there's a higher chance that they can get the company back into the track. Okay, like they can make sure that whatever the real objective or the goal of the company, that will be achieved very sooner with proper management efficiency. But literally there are scenarios where the management buyout may create a value for the shareholders as well, because they will get benefited through the better management of the company in future. Okay, so these are the main attractions of management buyout. So it's literally better to sell it off rather than selling off to any third parties. There's a chance that we will incur redundancy costs, or rather than liquidating, it's always better to go for management buyout or buy-in. Is it clear, everyone? So apart from that, these are the main types of business reorganization that we do in order to escape from the financial difficulty that we face. Apart from that, we will do certain kind of financial restructuring, such as going private. Going private means um, we will buy back all our shares from the public, so that we will become being private. Or we will issue right issue. We will be issuing right issue, so that we will get the cash. This cash will be used to pay back your debts. So these are the different ways in which we can actually restructure our all capital. So they are capital restructuring as well, business reorganization. So this is what actually includes in the corporate reconstruction part. Is it clear, everyone? Can you reply in the chat? So we'll get a better idea about this section. So there is nothing more to discuss in this part. So even in my live section, I don't take much about the theory area of this particular topic. It's better to do the questions to get a better idea about it. Okay, so you can practice the question, which is, for example, I think Flipboard is there. Flipboard. It's from September 2015, I think. So you can practice that question. Otherwise, let's see any other questions are there. Yeah. So these are the questions. Especially, it's better to do Flipboard. That's a very good question. So it's mandatory that you do that question. Okay. Then Bento, Inia, Nubo. Okay. So anyway, for the time being, we'll have a practice on Flipboard. I think then only I can just take that topic more better. So just go through that question. Flipboard. This is September, December 2015 question. Can you see the revision kit? This is the question. Preferred company. So it's a perfect question to know the whole structure about corporate reconstruction. So what are the questions here? Prepare a projected statement of financial position as at 30 June 2006 on the assumption that GUPT VC exercise its rights and GUPT venture capital shares are repurchased and cancelled by Flipboard company. And you have to project SIFP on the assumption that proposed refinancing and investment takes place, and prepare projected SOPL as well. And evaluate whether the suggested refinancing scheme is likely to be agreed by all financial providers. So we need to think from the perspective of our shareholders, the finance providers. Okay. So we'll discuss about that topic. So just go through this question. Just quickly go through this question. I hope all of you have the revision kit. It's from Kaplan revision kit. It's question number 62. Because I can't literally show the whole question here. Just I will give you a 5 minutes break. So just quickly go through this question. So have you read the question, guys? Have you read the question? Can I reply in the chat? Is it done? Yeah, fine. So what's the requirement here? What's the first requirement? We need to predict the SOFP as we see exercise, intercapitalize exercise its rights, and group VC shares are repurchased and cancelled by flip-out company. So if that's the situation, what will happen to the financial statement? So they have given a financial statement here, right? So SOFP, if what was the condition? If group VC exercise its rights. So shares are repurchased and cancelled by flip-out. So let's say the SOFP if Gupta VC shares are purchased by flip-out company and cancelled. So this is your assumption. If that's the situation, we have to calculate the restructuring amount, right? Okay. So what is SOFP here? What is the asset here? So in the assets, so in the asset side, they have given the asset. So let's just look at the asset here. What is that asset? The asset side, we have non-current asset, which is worth how much? The non-current asset, which is worth 69 million, right? So in the assets, we have non-current asset, which is given right now, it is 69 million. So now just go through the notes and check whether there will be any changes to this non-current asset as a result of this share purchase. Just read the notes. So 55% of the members on 55 shares are owned by Patel family who are directors, and 25% by other members Patel family, and 20% by Gupta VC. The bank loan is secured on non-current liabilities which before is due to be repaid on 31st December 2009, and ratio. The loan is subject to a covenant that the ratio of equity to non-current liability should be greater than 1.3 on a book value basis. And Fulford have granted an overdraft facility of 5 million by its bank. The loan note is held by Rajiv Patil, the member of Patil family, who is not a director. No finance are available. Investment non-current asset and current asset excluding cash. The bank loan note, and current liabilities can assume to be the same as at 30 June X5. So that's what they clearly says here. There will not be any if no finance is available for investment in manufacturing facilities. They have said that the asset value, the non-current asset, including current assets excluding cash, the bank loan, note, and current liabilities can be assumed to be the same. That's what they mentioned, right? So when we predict the SOFP, we can say that they have directly given a hint here. The non-current asset will remain the same. So will there be any change to this value 69 million when we predict XOFP? When we predict the SOFP, will there be any change to this value? No. Then next one, even they have said that the current assets excluding cash will remain the same, right? So even that figure, so these are the easy marks. So this is something which is question and you are following the same. So you'll get the marks for it. Okay. So as per the assumption which is mentioned in the question, so the current asset excluding cash, current asset excluding cash, how much it is? 18. It is 18. Then the cash balance, always don't quickly go to the cash balance part, because anyway we are repurchasing, right? So anyway there will be reduction in the cash balance, so just wait for it. And even they have told that there is a overdraft facility available, so there might be a situation where we may use the overdraft as well. So for the time being, the cash, I'm not touching it, so the cash will be a balancing figure anyway. The cash will stay, keep it there. Then moving ahead to the next part, the share capital. Will there be any change to share capital? Obviously, because we are repurchasing the share, right? We are repurchasing the share. So what happens when we repurchase the share? The equity value will go up or will go down? The equity value will go up or will go down when we repurchase the share? Can you reply in the chat? If we are repurchasing our shares, what will happen to the equity value? Will it go up or down? Can you reply in the chat? It will go down, right? Yes. So how much they are repurchasing? Can you just check it out? So the chief executive and finance director of Ford intend to propose that the company should be refinanced to fund the expanded production of his cushion chair, and they have not consulted anyone else about this proposal. Details of the proposal: the members of Patel family who are directors would subscribe to an additional $15 million one share at par, and Gap company would subscribe an additional 20 million at par. Then 8.5% bank loan would be negotiated with the bank, and borrowing can be increased to 65 million to be repaid on 30 June 2022. The expected finance cost will be 10% per annum. Then the loan note will be replaced by a 5 million share $1 shares. The refinancing with finance mean the non-current asset would increase to 125 million, and the cash would increase to 42, and current liability would increase by 12 million. So these are about the refinancing part. It's not with respect to our first requirement. The operating profit would escalate to 20 million and 25 million, and no dividends will be provided. So this part does not give any suggestion on the same. So we'll look into this part. Okay, so when there's a venture capitalist, 25% equity. Okay, so the sales have been generally disappointing. As a result, the members of Patel family have reluctant to invest further in Flowfort. So over the last year, Gupta have taken over tougher attitudes towards Flowfort. Gupta pressured Flowfort to pay dividend of 2 million for the year ended, and Gupta also said that Flowfort financial results do not improve. May exercise the right to compel to buy back his shares at par on 30 June 20x6. So they will buy back their shares on par at 30 June 20x6. So it mentioned that what's the percentage of shares that Gupta company have? 20% investment. 20% investment. Isn't it? Yes. If that 20% investment is getting buyed back, that's what we are assuming, that. So what will how it will impact the share capital? the 20% investment. How much it is 20%? Currently, they have how many shares? How many shares they have currently? 50 million, right? They have 50 million shares and each worth $1. So how much it is 20%? Can you just tell me how much it is 20%? Yes, 10 million. So if that here group company shares are purchased, in that scenario, if group company shares are purchased, will be forgot and cancelled. So in that scenario, what will be the change will go happen to your equity? Equities in the equity and liabilities part. What will be the change happens to equity here? The share capital, as we know that the share capital will get reduced by how much? Will get reduced by, can you reply in the chat? By 10 million, right? Because since it is $1, there won't be any confusion with the number of shares. The base value is $1 and there is 50 million shares. So the 20% is 10 million. So after the reduction, if this particular exercise happens, if they are exercising the right to comply, they will afford to buy back its shares. So they will buy it back at how much price? At par, at $1. So what will happen here? What will happen to share capital? From 50 million, it will reduce by 10 million. So how much it is left after the buyback? After, if the preferred company buy it back, how much it is left after the buyback? Can you reply in the chat? It is 40, right? Will be 40. Yes. So how will they finance it? How will they finance it? How, from where they will get the cash to buy back the shares? Because literally they have to make 5 million, right? Literally they have to make 5 million. So how will you do it? So it's mentioned that Ford company will need to make significant expenditure on the manufacturing facility with respect to that new project, and they need to invest additionally in the working capital as well. So we know that the equity will go by 40 million. So will it impact your share? So in the current year, it is 2.4. The profit for the year is 4 to x5. The retained earning is 2.4 and 2. So right now, the retained earnings is shown at how much? 2.6. So 2.6 plus the current year's profit. How much it is? What is the current year's profit? It is 2.4, right? Is it 5? No, no. The current year's profit, the 20x profit, the forecasted. Yeah, 2.4 plus 2.6, the existing retained earnings. So what will be the new retained earnings? The new retained earnings will be 2.6 plus 2.4. So it will be how much? 5 million. It will be 5 million. Is it clear, everyone? So what's the total equity? the total equity will be 45. Is it clear, everyone? Okay. So even they said that the amount of bank loan and everything will remain the same, right? So what is the percentage of bank loan? The non-current liability part, 8.5 percentage bank loan. It will remain the same. It is mentioned already. It is already mentioned there. The bank loan, the loan note, and current liabilities can assume to be the same. Okay. So how much it is? The 8.5% bank loan, it will be 30 itself, and the 9% loan note, how much it is? It will remain at 5 itself, because they said that it will remain the same. The total liability become 35. And what about the current liabilities? What about the current liability? Even it will remain the same. It is 7. Here, total of equity and liability. The total of equity and liability will be how much? 87. Okay, so the total of equity and liability will be 45 plus non-current liability plus the current liability is 87. So what should be the total of asset? What should be the total of asset? What should be the total of asset? Should be 87, right? How much you are getting here? 69 plus 18. How much it is? 87. Okay, so the cash balance will be how much? Nil. Is it clear, everyone, how to do that restructuring part? Okay, so in the same way, you can just practice. You can just do so. So first question, it is for 4 marks. So now we will do it for the second one. Projected SOFP as at 30 June 2006 on the assumption that proposed refinancing and reinvestment takes place. Just try to do that next 2 questions. Okay, in the same way. So I've just shown an example. Like, so those who are not learned any such type of question, I've just shown a demo there. Okay, in the same way, you have to literally look at the points which is mentioned here, and with respect to that, just predict the cash, just predict the SOFP. So those who haven't done it for the first time, they may get confused with certain items. So that's what in that when we do this reinforcement part, they have mentioned certain clues here. So for example, they have mentioned here that the non-current asset will increase to 125 if the refinancing takes place, and other cashes would increase to 42 million. So you can just pick out these points to predict the financial position. Is it clear, everyone? Okay, guys. So that's it for corporate reconstruction part. So we'll move on to our risk management area. So I will just share the Excel. You can complete the remaining after the class. Okay. So next one, we are going to discuss about risk management. In the risk management area, basically we have to discuss about 2 types of risk. The risk which is coming as a part of your exchange rate movement, that is forex risk, as well as it's not I'm not able to predict it, but obviously the reconstruction can get tested. But it literally is an easy topic. That's what I said. It doesn't need actually any knowledge as such. You have to literally read the question carefully and practice 2 or 3 questions. You will get used to with it. There is no separate technique like business valuation or something that will really help when it comes to the valuation question, the acquisition merger questions. But here, when it comes to the reconstruction, is completely depend upon the fact that how cool you are at the time of reading the question. And of course, you need the experience of practicing the questions, but you should know like there are certain assumptions that we provide. Oh, this is how you should do it. I have to look at the main points which are mentioned in the question. It's literally like a cakewalk if you are properly reading the question. If you are in a very tense situation, if you miss out anything from the question, then you will lose the marks there because we haven't applied any formulas there. We just followed what is written in the question. Okay. So obviously there is possibility. We can't ignore it. Okay. So the next mostly again, this one I can give a guarantee that this will get tested, but whether it is currency or interest, it's not up to us because in the last sitting there were two sets. Even in both two sets, they had the interest. I think so. It was interest. Don't remember it clearly, but I think it was interest. What is it for? Anyway, we can't give any prediction. We will discuss about both the forex and the interest rate risk management part. So with respect to forex, we know that we have internal hedging methods and external hedging methods. So can you just give me a quick revision on what are the internal hedging methods, especially with respect to foreign exchange risk transaction? So basically, we are focusing on the transaction risk when it comes to the risk management. There are some other type of risks such as translation and economic risk. So what do you mean by translation or economic risk? What do you mean by translation or economic risk? Can you reply in the chat? The transaction risk means like the foreign receipt or payment. If you have a foreign receipt or payment, there's a chance that you may get a higher payment than what you expect, or you may receive a lower receipt than what you actually expect. Okay, so that is known as transaction risk. What do you mean by translation risk? Translation risk happens mainly if you have a foreign subsidiary or something like that. Literally at the reporting date, we know that we have to convert these assets and liabilities, everything at the closing rate at the time of consolidation. So when we convert it to the home currency, there will be some exchange rate movements. So that kind of risk is known as translation risk. So that literally not going to result in any kind of economic outflow because it's not a cash flow movement. But transaction risk is a cash flow movement, but it's a short-term risk. Is it clear? Next one is economic risk. We all know the fact that China is a big market for almost like they are the biggest export. They used to export many stuffs. But can you see that their money values keep on increasing? The money value of China, is it above dollars? Is it above dollars? Can you reply in the chat? No. If we can just refer to it. They have intentionally understated the value of their currency so that their product becomes more cheaper compared to other countries' product. So one of the reason for the cheapness of their product is their money value. So they have intentionally kept their money value at a lower amount so that for the external parties that product seems to be more cheaper. Are you getting it? So it will literally affect the exports, the same product which is made in India, if you are planning to sell in the world market, obviously the China can easily compete us because of the cheapness of their currency. So this risk is known as economic risk. Are you getting it? Can you reply in the chat? Okay. So as an Indian manufacturer, how can you hedge this risk? Again, it's a long-term cash flow. It's a cash flow risk, and it is literally we will lose out the money here, and it's there for long term as well. So we have only certain offers options available to us here. Either we can go for diversification. Can means that we can diversify into new products. Otherwise, we should sell unique product. We should sell something which is really unique. We know that every year there are new Chinese phones are coming into the market, but will it affect the market of the Apple? Will it affect the market of Apple? No. Why? What's the reason? Are they really bothered about it? Did they ever reduce their price by considering the fact that there are more Chinese phones coming in the market with the same specifications? No. Why? Because they know that they are unique, they are best in the business. Okay. So they are differentiated from others. So that's one of the option we have. We can differentiate ourselves and be unique. That's one of the best method to protect, like fight against this economic risk. Or we can go for diversification. Join the new products. Enter into new products. Don't sell the phones anymore. Otherwise, just start manufacturing your products in China or Japan or something like that. So there it will be more cheaper to produce it. Then compete with the market. So that's why we can say that something assembled in China, you might have seen that, right? Assembled in China in many of the phones is written there. It's getting assembled there, right? So that's another option we have. We can just internationally change our production unit to China. So these are the ways in which we can actually hedge against the economic risk. So this can come up for your discussion topic. Okay. So here in FM, in AFM, we have to mainly focus on the transaction risk. How will you hedge the transaction risk? So the transaction risk can be hedged both internally and externally. So what are the internal methods available to us? Hedging transaction risk. So something which you are learning from the very basic, that is from FM. Yeah, invoicing in our own currency, then matching receipts and payments, netting, then leading and lagging, right? So these are the different internal hedging methods that we can use to hedge against the transaction risk. And in AFM, we are discussing about something known as multilateral netting as well. So what do you mean by multilateral netting? What do you mean by multilateral netting? So there will be different currencies and we'll have 2 or 3 suppliers. So it's like a group. So we have to convert this all currency, that the receipts and payment, into a single currency. Then we'll net it off. So that's what we do in a multilateral netting. Yeah, we'll prepare a matrix. So I'll just show a demo there. Just wait. This is perfectly explained in the question AdBrain group. So I will discuss this part with the help of AdBrain group. Can you see the Excel? Can you see the Excel, guys? Yeah. So this is how we'll do the multilateral netting. So here, this company have different suppliers as well as it's like a group. So they have AdBrain, Boscha, Colgate, Dilling. So these are different companies. So what we have done here, so literally you can see that literally we have converted everything to one single currency. Then we have netted off these receipts and payment, and finally we got the net amounts, and it will get settled between them. That's what we do in a multilateral netting. First of all, we have to convert everything into a single currency. Then we will prepare a matrix. That is, say Adverine company does not owe anything to Adverine company. So amount owed to is plotted in the towards right, and towards down amount owed by. So Adverine amount owed to Adverine by Adverine 0. Amount owed to Adverine by Boscha 0. Amount owed to Adverine by Colgate 24.6. Amount owed to Adverine by Dilling 12.29. So the total receipt is how much? If we read rightwards, it is the amount owed to. So it is literally the receipts. So it is 36.45. So like that, we have to predict it. So we'll get this amount. It will be given in the question to which currency you have to convert it. And the exchange rates also will be given there. So first of all, we need to net off these receipts and payments. Then we'll prepare a matrix and we'll settle it off on the basis which is given in the question. Is it clear, everyone? I hope it's a very easy trick method. Like if anyone of you want me to explain it, I will explain with the same question. I hope it's a very easy method and all of you know it. Is it clear, everyone? So these are the steps. Convert everything into a single currency, then prepare this matrix. So towards right, it is over to, towards down, it is over by. So if you calculate downwards, this is the payment. So payment will be downward and the receipt should be right. Okay. So even this is a kind of internal hedging method. So once we're done with the internal hedging methods, then we have external hedging methods. So in the external hedging methods, we have to focus on the main items. Just 1 minute. Let me take a note. I'll just go through my notes. MMH and forward, it comes under external hedging. Yes. Okay. So we have forward contract. So can you just reply in the chat? Can you see the PDF? Yes. Can you see the PDF? Yes. Okay. So forward contract. So what do you mean by forward contract? So in forward contract, we will try to fix the exchange rate in advance. We'll try to fix the exchange rate in advance because we know that there can be some exchange rate movements will happen in the future, and we expect this movement to be adverse. Adverse means it will result in such a situation where we have to pay a higher payment or we'll get a lower receipt. So in order to reduce that risk, we are trying to fix the exchange rate upfront. That's what we are trying to do with the help of a forward contract. Here, the advantage is if there is a adverse movement with respect to exchange rate in future, we will not get affected by that because we have fixed the exchange rate in upfront or in advance. But the disadvantage being, let's say in the market, if the exchange rate moves favorably, that is, it is moving favorably, but you will not get the option to enjoy its benefit. Are you getting it? Can you reply in the chat, guys? So that's what we are doing in forward contract. So the advantage is it's a very simple contract. We don't need to think too much about it. And you just need to, even the calculation wise, literally easy. If you know how to do the conversion, then let's say if the receipts is in 3 months, the 3 months forward rate will be given in the question and you have to use the appropriate exchange rate. That's it. And you should know the concept of conversion. That's it. And next one, it is money market hedging, and we have currency option, all the stuff. So next one, it is about money market hedging. So how will you do the money market hedging part? In money market hedging, let's say for exporters. For exporters means you are expecting a receipt. You are expecting a receipt in future. Maybe in next 3 months. Okay. So if you are expecting a receipt, you already have a asset there. You already have a asset in the foreign currency. You already have a asset in the foreign currency. You have foreign receipt. Okay. So let's say $3 million. You already have a asset of $3 million in the foreign currency. So you will expect to receive it after 3 months. But we know that in 3 months' time, if you are converting this $3 after 3 months to your presentation currency, let's say 2 rupees, you are expecting that the exchange rate move adversely. So what we'll do here, we want the money in advance. We will try to get the money in advance. How will you get the money in advance? I will take a loan. I will take a loan in foreign currency. But can I take it for $3 million itself? No, because now if I take for $3 million, after 3 months, I have to pay the interest for it. So literally my customer will not be ready to pay the interest. So how I will take the loan? I will take a loan after discounting for that interest rate, after discounting the interest rate for 3 months. So I will calculate what's the interest rate for 3 months there. So that borrowing rate should be used to discount it. So I will then you will get the present value of loan to be taken in foreign currency. Is it clear? Is it clear? So once we get the money in the foreign currency, now we need to convert it. We will convert it into home currency at the spot rate. We'll convert it to home currency at the spot rate. So what's the benefit here? What's the benefit here? I've already got the money which I borrowed in dollars. So I'm just converting it on the same date itself. So will you get exposed to the change in the exchange rate movements? Will you get exposed to the change in the exchange rate movement? No, because we are not getting exposed to the exchange rate movement there because we are exchanging it today. The transaction happens today itself. So it is at the spot rate. So we'll get the money, we'll convert it into rupees. You got the money in rupees. But we know that we got something which is lower than what we have expected because $3 has been discounted and we got a money at after deducting the interest. So literally after 3 months, if you are investing this dollar, if whatever the amount we have converted into rupees, we will invest it in our home currency at the depositing rate for 3 months and we'll check what's the price you get. So that will be the net receipt you can get. That will be the net receipt that you can get in the MMH. So this is what we do in MMH. So what we have done here, we expected exchange rate movements to go adversely. We expected an adverse movement in the exchange rate. So we have tried to cover it up with the help of MMH. So here we haven't entered into any contract, but simply through bank, by having an arrangement with the bank, we have done this. So why it is known as MMH? Because we have literally used money market. Money market means that's a market where we can borrow or deposit for a short time period. That's why it is known as, that's the market known as money market. So we are literally using the benefits of money market to hedge the risk. That's why it became MMH. That's why that method is known as MMH. Money market hedging. Is it clear, everyone? So here, instead of fixing the exchange rate upfront, we have tried to create a hedge in such a way that, so we have created our own exchange rate. How will you calculate it? How will you predict? How will you calculate the exchange rate that we have created? So we need to check for $3 million, how much rupees at the end net receipt you have received. So through this particular, by the comparison of this $3 million with the net receipt that you have received in MMH, we can estimate the exchange rate that we have created using money market hedge. So at the end of a calculation, you can show that, okay, this is the exchange rate that we have achieved through money market hedging, literally. Instead of fixing any exchange rate in upfront, we have achieved an exchange rate here. The help of money market. Are you getting it? So whenever it's a foreign receipt, immediately you need to borrow the money so that we will get the money in advance. You will not get exposed to the exchange rate risk. So we'll convert it to home, that is to rupees. Then we'll deposit it for another 3 months to know the net receipt you are going to get. And finally, if you're comparing that 3 million with the rupees, you can estimate your exchange rate. Is it clear, everyone? Can you reply in the chat, guys? The money market hedging for foreign receipt? Yes. If it is foreign payment, what do you have to do there? If it's a foreign payment, we know that you already have a liability there. So will it be possible to get the loan from there? No. But if you wait for another 3 months, literally you will waste the time, as well as you may get exposed to the exchange rate. So we need to transfer the fund today itself to that foreign currency. So in order to transfer it, we'll take a loan from our own home currency, but first of all, you know how much is the amount I have to take as loan. So when it comes to a foreign payment, the first step is you have a foreign payment. Let's say the same amount, it is $3 million payment is there. So we need to know the amount need to be deposited today in foreign currency. The amount need to be deposited today in foreign currency. So how will you calculate it? It is $3 million divided by 1 plus depositing rate. We'll use the depositing rate to discount it. So we'll get to know that, okay, this is the amount that we have to literally deposit, and we'll borrow this amount from home country. How? We'll convert this. Whatever the amount that needs to be calculated in dollars, we'll convert it into rupees at the spot rate. So we'll get to know that, okay, this is the amount I have to purchase in rupees. Is it clear? Then whatever the amount I have borrowed in rupees, it will be incur interest for 3 months. So finally I will get the net payment in rupees. Then compare this net payment in rupees with 3 million to know that what's the rate that we have established. So this is how we hedge a foreign payment. So we'll create an asset there. So first of all, we need to know how much amount I have to deposit in foreign currency. So I will calculate it by discounting it my depositing rate, and I will convert it into home country. Then with the interest, I will get to know that what's the net cost I have to get. Is it clear, everyone? The money market hedging, the whole process of money market hedging. Is it clear, everyone? Can you reply in the chat, guys? Okay. Okay, guys. So that's it for the day. So we'll discuss about the futures and option in the next class. So when we discuss about the future and options of forex, literally you can easily relate it with the futures and options of interest. So you can easily learn it together. Okay. So that futures and options, we'll discuss it tomorrow. So we can literally cover the future and option of forex and interest rate together. So that I will do in the next class. Okay. And make sure that you do complete that full forward question, as well as just read the question at very end and try to do that multilateral netting part. Okay. So just make sure that you do it. Adverin group, just read that question and complete the question before. So clear, everyone? Okay, guys. So that's it for the day. I will just share the notes. So that's it. I'm just copying. I'm just saving this notepad so that I can share it. You guys can just leave.